Today, we're going to determine whether or not you should use those no-code app builders that you've probably seen around like Lovable, Replit, and Bolt. Now, I've tested them all and I spent hundreds of dollars in credits and subscription. And what I discovered will probably save you a lot of money and frustration. Because everywhere you look on YouTube, the message is pretty much the same. These no-code tools are making app development accessible to anyone. But here's the truth, and something that you don't really see a lot of people talking about, is that those no-code tools almost have a built-in incentive not to work super well. And for about 80% of people out there trying to build something with them, you may be setting yourself up for a disappointment. Now, I know it sounds harsh, but I have the receipts, and that's really what I want to show you today. And then give you the 3 specific situations where no-code actually makes sense so that you can make the right decision for your project. And rather than just sit here and rant, let me just walk you through the average user experience using these kind of tools. And let's say that you had a brilliant new app idea and you choose to build it in Lovable, which is probably the most popular one right now. And I have an idea for an app around this, built in public trend that you see on Twitter a lot, where essentially you're just very transparent with your results and how things are going with your business and these new things that you're building. So I would want an app that make this really easy for people to display this on a dashboard. So exactly, how much revenue, how much users they have, and just, be able to keep progress on those people, keep them accountable, and be able to share this publicly. I think this would be a good app. So let's say that this is something that I want to build inside of Lovable. And I spent some time crafting the perfect prompt so that you can't tell me that this is the reason that I'm not getting a good result. I want to show you the one-shot prompt that you would get in something like this. And I'm even using GPT-5, and let's see what we get. Okay, here we are, and it took about 8 minutes to generate. And what you're going to realize is that, at first glance, this looks amazing. This looks like, just a one-shot prompt. I was able to get about 80% of where I need to be for this to be a viable MVP. Because the UI looks great, right? I mean, off the bat, Lovable is going to give you a very pretty interface and not much to edit on that end. But then you realize that half of the thing on there don't really work. I mean, any button that I'm trying to click, to be fair, some of those are actually doing something. Like, if I'm trying to add a module, this is a bit bare and obviously not necessarily something that I would have in mind. But a bunch of those functionality just don't work. And you're going to have to prompt more and more to try to make those work. And pretty quickly, if you're on a free plan, you're going to hit your credit limit. And again, you're thinking, I'm about 80% there. So if I just upgrade to the paid plan, surely in about a few days, I'm going to be able to just get to exactly where I want to be. Because from the outside, it looks almost like a finished product. And that's fair enough. I mean, you shouldn't expect to have a fully viable MVP product just with a free plan. But even if you upgrade, you'll realize that you'll have to prompt again and again until you actually get something that works. And just to show you, I've done this exact project that I mentioned. And to even get it to something that actually kind of works, it took almost all of my monthly credit. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to come here and you're going to try to fix this edit button. You're going to prompt. It's going to maybe fix it, maybe not. And then something else will break. And then you're trying to fix that. And then now the edit button doesn't work. And you're going to go back and forth for a while before all of the features and functionality of your app actually work together. And I think it probably makes sense that those tools will charge you on a credit usage basis. But it's really backward if you think about it, because now the incentive is almost for those tools not to work too well. I mean, if you were able to just one-shot prompt all of the app ideas that you have in Lovable, then obviously they would make a lot of money. And in fact, when you look at YouTube videos about this topic, a lot of ways that people advise you to optimize is going to be to create these prompts that ask for a lot, but not too much. Because if you're trying to cram a bunch of features into your next prompt, it's not going to work. It's only going to be able to really do 2 or 3 things well in just one prompt. And that's why you have to keep prompting and keep spending credits. Now, I'm not saying that those tools are purposefully trying to make their program lazy, but they're going to try to reduce their API costs because that's going to be the main cost for the platform. So again, you have this built-in incentive for them to give you just enough computing power and LLM power to do something pretty well, but not something perfect. And the truth is, I don't really know what the solution here is, because I've personally moved to something like Cursor, which doesn't charge you on a credit system and seems to me at least to be better than these tools to build feature that actually works. This credit problem is actually one of the smaller problems, and the real issue is going to cost you more money and time. Okay, so back to our example here of a first-time user to one of those tools. And let's say that just like I did, you spent hours prompting and prompting, upgrading to the free plan, getting more credits, and you finally get to something that actually kind of works and kind of looks like what you had in mind. And now it's time to make some integration, because most apps will need at least a few things. The first one is going to be to have some kind of authentication and database. And the easiest way to do that is going to be through Supabase. And that's something that directly integrates in Lovable. So that's going to be a way for people to create an account, log in as a user, and for you to keep a record of this, and as well as all of their data inside of their account. The second integration is going to be something like Stripe to be able to take payments. And then most apps that people build today want to include some types of AI feature, which means that you're going to need some kind of API keys from OpenAI or other LLM. And so all of those things need to be integrated and maintained. I mean, it's not really user-friendly if you've never built anything to integrate this, maintain it, and actually have it work. I mean, most people using those tools have zero experience in using API or the HTTP request. And so, this part, the front part where you just, prompt the AI and it gives you this really nice UI and dashboard, that's something that it can do. But when it comes to the actual, backend technical stuff, then obviously they're going to be lost. So I think it's just a big promise to say to anyone that, in just a matter of a few hours, they're going to have this functional app and leave out all of this technical stuff that is still needed for this to work. And a lot of people are trying to vibe code, a SaaS tool that they're paying $10 a month right now because they think it's going to be cheaper to replace it with their own custom app. Just to make it kind of work, you're going to have to pay for, just the $25 for Lovable and then add to that another 2 to 3 API cost. And you're easily going to get into the $100 a month just in API cost. And you'll quickly realize that this $10 a month SaaS is actually a great deal because, they have an economy of scale, so it makes sense for them and it just works. Like you don't have to mess around and prompt your way to something. Okay, and I don't want to be a party pooper. This is not a video to tell you that these tools are trash and you should just forget about it. Let's talk about the real case studies and when it actually makes sense. And the first one is going to be prototyping. And really the first use case that I had was to, use those tools to help me redesign part of my website. And if you're not a UI designer, then that's really when these tools are going to be really helpful because you're going to get a good feel for what the end product is going to look like in a matter of minutes. Especially if it's something like a simple website, you're going to get something super close to a finished product with these tools. And it's going to force you to think about, small interactions on your app or your website before you even get the MVP, before you spend these weeks and weeks to actually build the MVP. In just a few minutes, you're going to be able to think about those, tiny details that make a big difference in your website or your app. The second use case are going to be internal users. And obviously, if you're just planning on this to be a local app that you use for you or your team, then you don't need to worry about a bunch of things that we talked about right here. You don't need to worry so much about, security, integration, and making everything work perfectly together because it's not meant to be a paid product. So if that's the case, if it's just for an internal custom tool that you needed and it doesn't take you, weeks and weeks, then it might be worth it. The third real use case is going to be from middle to middle. And I really like this tweet from Balaji, which says that AI doesn't do it end to end, it does it middle to middle. And the new bottleneck is prompting and verifying. And I think that's really the more honest description of those tools, meaning that it's not going to be something that takes you from, idea to a finished product. It's going to be something that you can, have a good feel, mock-up, sort of representation of what you had in mind into the screen, and then passing on to a professional developer, which will be able to, work in the nitty-gritty and everything that makes an app actually work in practice for a finished product. That's really the power of these tools, at least for now, in my opinion. And again, I'm a very big fan of the tools and I use it every day. And if you want to see some more practical implementation of these kind of tools, then check out my last video where I do this for a bunch of Upwork projects that I picked up randomly and just build those apps for them for free. But if you just want to keep updated with the latest, AI automations and how to implement them in your business, then subscribe to my free newsletter. That's going to be in the description. Thank you for watching and I'll talk to you soon.